DevOps and baking. So my name is Heather. I'm a developer advocate at Progress Chef. I've been in tech for 6 years, mostly as a software developer. And before that, I was a professional baker and pastry chef. So I learned to code while developing recipes. And today we're going to go through an analogy of DevOps and baking. We'll look at 4 stages with DevOps broken into plan, build, deploy, and monitor, and baking as prep, mix, bake, and feedback. So before we get cooking, there's 2 important aspects to consider. The first one is that both DevOps and baking they are built on a philosophy of culture. Both grew thanks to communities of people working together. And DevOps, it's sharing responsibilities between development and operations. And baking is largely dependent on these colonies of yeast and bacteria working together to create these tasty profiles. And the second important aspect is automation. In order to have a healthy economies of scale, we first mix by hand, and then we automate by machine to grow production. Okay, so the first step is planning and prep. And in tech, the answer to most questions begins with, it depends. So what are we building? What resources do we have? Who's it for? What's it gonna look like? These things we need answered in excruciating detail in order to set ourselves up for success. Do the scripts run? Do they cover all the steps necessary in the build and bake process? Do we have enough resources for the busiest days? Do we waste resources on the slow days? Are we building fast enough so that the butter is not melting? Timing is everything. DevOps grew as a solution to the bottleneck created between passing tasks over the fence from development to operations and back again. And bakers are hyper aware of the passing of time. A few seconds can make a big difference, like the seasonality of apples. It has to align with, the chilled and relaxed pie dough. We need a perfectly baked crust to perform a golden image to replicate a dozen times every day. There are a lot of different pieces to consider when setting ourselves up for success in DevOps and baking. We really need to understand each piece of the pie in order to be ready for the next few stages, which is build and mix. And by this time, hopefully we have everything ready to go, environment's configured, everything is good to go, but that doesn't always happen. So in DevOps and baking, we really plan for delays, errors, unknowns, mishaps. And with enough experience, we know how to handle all these things, and we do our best to minimize variability and collaborate with our teammates in order to set ourselves up for success. So with building and mixing, ideally, at best, we have highest confidence that the products meet our expectations, and it's exactly what we envisioned. We've considered all the dependencies. The scheduling and the timing and the taste tests are done. So ideally, with baking and deploying and baking, we have the highest confidence that it's all good to go. All the tests are green, no flames or red errors from the burning bread, although that makes for great stories. And for this stage, we need the highest faith in our tools. We have to have trustworthy tools to ensure that the environment variables are correct and we don't have to open the oven door to disrupt the process. All the taste tests are complete. We have a really clear view into the oven with our logs and monitors to know if we need to intervene and adjust something or prevent a bigger disaster from unfolding. Talking for 5 minutes is a long time, y'all. So monitoring feedback is ideally by the time we have a great application deployed and a happy bake, we have all this feedback and logs to let us know how the product went, and we can spend time with this and the users to understand how they engage, the interpretations and their experiences, so that we can take all this information and let it influence future cycles to iterate on our process so that we can establish systems that help us grow, and we're all happy together cultivating success and winning. And that's kind of all I have in conclusion. DevOps is delicious. Sprinkle it onto your software development lifecycle. Here are a few ways to connect. You can find me at the Progress Chef sponsor table. And all those photos were from back when I was a baker. Thank you all.